All right, so let's talk about defense because I'd be curious. I don't know if you guys net out with me here. I think coming into the season and coming out of training camp, I would say the same thing. I think Oregon's got the best defense in the league. I think they got an NFL player, an early NFL draft pick at every layer, starting with Brandon Dorlus at defensive line. Noah Sewell is the best player in the league, in my opinion. And Christian Gonzalez, I just sat down with him. I was up there a couple of days ago. This guy is, I think he's a first-round corner. I think he's the best corner out west, and I understand why. We're going to release our Field of 12 All-American team tomorrow. He won't be on it, not to play spoiler, and I understand why, but by the end of the year, I think he'll be on everybody's All-American list. This guy is legit fast, right? We all probably were captivated. Remember when David Blau, the Detroit Lions, was watching his wife, Melissa, run in the Olympics for Columbia?
Yeah.
That's Christian's sister. This dude grew up. Literally, he said we'd go to eat dinner, and after dinner, we'd pull over the side of the road to a park, and our whole family would race. His dad's 6'9", played professional basketball in Columbia, just a family of athletes. I think he's a beast, man. He's all of 6'2", really long, really athletic, been playing since he was a freshman, followed Demetrius Martin there. So I love this defense. And we'd even talk about some of the other weapons that they have on that side of the ball. So I'm going with them defensively. Dan Lanning as a defensive-minded head coach, I think is exciting. He's now 36 years old, got the job at 35. There's something cool about that for us, all of us. I don't know, George, you and I are older. Adam, I don't even know. What are you, like 26, 28?
27.
27. Yeah, so you can't imagine being 35 yet, but George and I can imagine being 35. Being
35 sounds old, man. I don't know.
Yeah, it is. It is kind of.
Oh, that's cute. That's cute.
But Adam, I want to start with you, man. Like you referenced Bo Nix, the guy you toasted to. We love Bo. George and I have been around him since he was in high school. What makes you lean into the Ducks? And if you love him so much, how come you don't think the Ducks could win the league? Or maybe you do if you haven't given us your pick.
Yeah, I think I love a good transfer portal story. So I'm a big Bo Nix fan. I want to see him end his career on a great note. I think, it's funny. I've tweeted about Bo Nix some, and every time I do, the Auburn fans just start coming like, you haven't seen him play. He's lost us so many games. But you talk about a guy that he's throwing for 40 touchdowns and 7,500 yards and won so many games in the SEC, in the best conference in football.
Jurassic
and now
Park,
coming into the Pac-12. Yeah. And I just love Dan Lanning, like you mentioned. I mean, his story is an awesome story of, he was, 27, 28 years old, went to be a GA, rose the ranks quickly. Kenny Dillingham, I think, is a great play caller and obviously recruits really well and will be great for Bo Nix. Noah Sewell, I think rivals Will Anderson as the best defensive player in the country. So I think there's a lot of reasons to love Oregon, and I just think that USC is too talented. I think I have USC 1, Oregon 2 in my power rankings, and I just think I think USC is too talented, but I do love Oregon, man, and I'm rooting for Bo Nix this year because he's just an easy guy to root for, man. And with all the talk about Ty Thompson, all the talk of the fans wanting to see Ty Thompson, and I think Ty Thompson has an amazing career. That's not even really a question. I mean, he's going to be a special player, but I'm excited to see Bo Nix do the thing on his last hurrah here at Oregon.
I honestly love Bo Nix. Right, just as a dude, as a guy, and Yogi's right. His story is incredible.
Oh boy, and I know where this is going.
We do get sentimental about these guys when we meet them. They're 17 years old and fresh haircut when they come in, and you see them, and their eyes are this big, and the sword's brand new and shiny. It hasn't hit another sword yet. I'm like, wow, that's a great shiny sword you got. But I can't wait to see you and that sword go to work. And then he goes to Auburn. And honestly, from some of the staff and players that I'm close to down there, and I nerd out, just like Yogi goes all over, I go all over. It wasn't technically talent, and it wasn't, mechanics and all those sorts of things. It was his inability to galvanize people at Auburn. And there was notes of entitlement that came out of Auburn. Oh, my name, my family, I do this, I do that. You guys go that way, I'm going this way. And that's where it kind of came undone from what I heard on the ground. Obviously, I'm not a Tiger. But so to me, it's a lesson that a lot of guys, I think most guys in his situation pick up, learn. It's a learning lesson. I bet you his approach at Oregon is going to be completely different. There's going to be some urgency and almost some kind of, you want to say desperation, but this pedal to the floor to go in and will and win hearts and minds, a lot like what Russell Wilson did when he got to Wisconsin. You're just more self-aware. And so hopefully he does that. Tony Franklin and Chris Hudson, I think they're going to help him out at wide receiver. There you go, Yogi. And then Kenny Dillingham, I'm curious to see how they try to offset what Bo does. Because honestly, Adam, I don't know if Bo finishes the year as the starter. And I think he'll finish healthy. But will he go the distance as the starter, or will he have to give way? The kid behind him, Thompson, talented dude now.
Yeah, he's special.
Talented dude. He's been in the stables now. He's kicking. That sound you hear is him kicking those stable doors. And then Oregon's going to be put in there pretty fast. Georgia, we're going to learn early. Lastly, love Dan Lanning. And just everything on the table. I wrote him a letter last year. I wrote him a note. I'm a writer. I send coaches notes, and I told him just what Yogi said about defenses earlier. So much respect, not just for, and Yogi and Adam, we call it the Bulldog defense, the White Walkers. We don't know if they'll resume that name again, but that's in homage to the unbeatable force out of Game of Thrones. But not just because they had all these world beaters on defense, it's because they play so smart. Very few errors. They had the incredible leadership of Nakobe Dean. They got all these monsters around him, and they moved on a string. And I told him they look so well coached, so poised, and the brotherhood, nothing's breaking this unit. And, he sent a note back, etc. I just think he's going to bring a lot of those Jurassic Park elements in terms of grit, battle, the front, how to man the line of scrimmage, because it is a little bit of a different style out here out west. And yeah, you're one of maybe 2 or 3 monsters, but there are no other real monsters out here. So, and now you get a Noah Sewell. Who better than to go from Nakobe Dean and then turn and you get Sewell and you say, sit down. Let's talk about this defense's future with you, at the heartbeat of it. I do really like Oregon, and I just really have a concern, not at a quarterback play, but at a quarterback leadership, more to the point.
Okay. All right. All interesting points. I'll be brief so we can get to the rest of the teams here, but I do think a couple things. One, let's address the present reality. And you could read about it in a book called 5-Star QB that George Whitfield has contributed to. But Bo Nix is in the book as well. And Bo wrote about how when he chose to go to Auburn, it was almost like he had to go, right? It was predestined. We've all seen the video with him as a kid in the jersey on, right? Like we all been there and watched it on YouTube or on many games that he's played in his career. But it wasn't necessarily like, this is the thought I want to make. And he said, what, I looked at the last year. This is a guy who was still going to be the starter there, right, from everything I was told, and said, what, I want a fresh start. I want a fresh slate. So I can't speak to what George referenced. I haven't heard that necessarily. But if that's the case, he's saying, what, maybe it's like Russell Wilson, or maybe it's like some of these other quarterbacks that have transferred of, all right, let me just like wipe the slate clean, and take that massive weight off my shoulders. Let me just kind of play free. And I think that's what we're going to see from him, having been up there in the spring and just being there over the weekend. I think that's what we're going to see from him. And I'm excited for that. I think defensively, they also have some other guys like Justin Flo, who's the #1 recruit in the nation at inside linebacker. This dude is like beast mode. I'm talking sideline to sideline freakish. Noah Sewell, I'll still never forget him at the opening when George and I were there in Dallas. George, you might even have a video of this on your phone, but we're standing there, and I remember standing next to Emmitt Smith watching this drill. Linebackers, running backs, one-on-one amid the cones. And it's like, turn around, can the running back move and shake and lose the linebacker? And not only does he hawk every dude down, afterwards he screams and says, am I a D lineman now? Am I a D lineman now? Well, this guy's 265 at 4'6".
Adam, going against 200-pound running backs.
he's gonna go. Yeah, exactly. He's
Yeah.
gonna go higher in the draft than Kobe Dean did, having been at the draft last year. Like, this guy is everything, and that's what I'm most intrigued by in the opener. I've done some radio shows, as you guys do, around the country, and in the South, a lot of the prevailing narrative is, well, Oregon's not gonna be able to handle it physically against Georgia. If there's one thing I would say they'll be able to handle, it'll be physically against Georgia. I mean, this team was built by Mario Cristobal in recruiting. This is 3 straight years of top 10 recruiting classes. These are big bodies. Like, these are big dudes. Their O-line is not getting any play. Alex Forsythe, I almost put a big argument into making him an All-American on our preseason All-American list, which will, again, reveal tomorrow. Spoiler, he's not on there. There is one Pac-12 lineman on there, though. I'll tell you that, who that is tomorrow. but I say that of, like, this team's built physically. Like, this, they have had a challenging training camp, and I'm so intrigued to see them throw down. I think it'll be a game of, like, they're not going to be able to make mistakes. But this is a team that also went into the shoe, and I get CJ was young, and you can say whatever you want about the offense last year, but they moved the ball at will. And this offensive line, most of them are coming back. So I like the physicality of them. On the quarterback thing, I'm going to go Ty Thompson. I'm going to go on a major soapbox here because I'm speaking to fans around the country. We live in a world now, if a kid doesn't play, if a young man doesn't play as a freshman, as a big recruit, they think he's a bust or going to transfer. If he doesn't play as a second year, he's definitely out. Correct. I was with Ty Thompson. We walked out of the practice field together last week. He looks like a man, right? Like, he looks like a member of Georgia's Roman Army, as I'm sure he's referenced many times in these preview shows. It's his second year in college with the second system. Let's just relax. It's the most complicated and intricate position in sport. So for fans out there, Oregon hasn't named a starting quarterback. We're all just presuming it to be Bo Nix. If we presume it to be Bo Nix, let's just pump the brakes on Ty Thompson isn't good enough. Ty Thompson didn't make it. And if you have any questions about that, I'm happy to have, like, an educated dialogue with you, because there's so many quarterbacks that all of us have worked with and been around that need time to develop.
Mac Jones, 3 coordinators,
Thank you.
Waits his time, leads to a national championship, and then goes on to go play in the NFL early. Question for you, Yogi.
Yeah.
How much edge does Dan Lanning give Oregon to go see Georgia out of the gate? Now, Georgia can't overhaul that much stuff. They can't overhaul everything. And the scouting on the individual players, half of which he coached, and the other half he saw in practice, mindset, protocols, attitude, response mechanisms. I mean, that's a lieutenant from one army is now general and turns back to see his old army. How much edge do you give him?
If it was
him as a factor.
Yeah, if it was week 4, I'd say that gets overblown. But because it's week 1, I think there's some credence to it. And I think it's going to be in scheming up individual players or scheming up individual pressures, right? I know how this left tackle sets. I know how this running back chips. I know what this receiver can do, and this is what we need to do on third down if we need to bracket him. Or, hey, I can put Christian Gonzalez on an island and let him ride. Like, that to me, and then it's going to be in the game. My favorite part about first-time head coaches is how they manage situational football. And not just the middle 8, last 4 minutes of the second, first 4 of the third, but fake punt, when you bring a boundary pressure, when you take a shot. Like, those are the things that I'm so intrigued, because he's either going to trust his prep, which is one thing, my call sheets, percentages tell me one thing, or his gut. And I think it's the best coaches I've been around do a combination. They feel it. They feel, especially defensively, you feel the game. Coach Carroll taught me that when he was when Gus Bradley was his DC. He would say, Gus loved the numbers so much that he was always like, hey, if the crowd's really into it, don't be afraid to bring in extra pressure or whatever it may be. So that I just can't wait to watch that. And what a moment! Like, when do we ever get this? I can't think of one time we've had a season opener with a team whose head coach got plucked from the opponent, let alone the natty, like the national champion. So I don't know. Can you guys?
Yeah, no, I think the biggest thing too is not just the
Lane Kiffin's teams, maybe.
Yeah,
Sorry,
it's gotta be. No, you're good. It's just the emotions behind it, like you said, Yogi. Aside from even the the schematic part of it and the X's and O's, just the emotions that Oregon team's going to have fighting for their first year head coach, the young guy who got the job when people might have thought he shouldn't have. That's powerful. And I think that's going to have an impact. And then not just the scheme from Dan Lanning, but also all the young staffers he took with him from Georgia. Those are guys that have seen that Georgia roster every single day too. So there's a whole staff at Oregon that's been at Georgia and seen those guys day to day. But I'm excited. The big matchup I'm looking forward to seeing, and we haven't even really mentioned them, Oregon's young receivers, Troy Franklin, Dante Thornton against Ringo. That great DB in the Georgia secondary, Georgia's whole defense. I mean, Oregon's got some good young receivers, and we'll see if Bo Nix, assuming he's a starter, can get the ball to him in space.
Yeah, that'll be good. All right, so I want to transition to a theme.
Well, let me real quick question.
Yeah.
Will Bo Nix, and he'll be healthy, will he finish the season if he's the starter, will he finish the season as the starter, Yogi? Both of you.
I think he will. I think this team's going to be really talented. I think they're going to win games. And I think that Bo is, I don't know if he's going to have a Heisman type season, or I know some people have projected him to be one of the top quarterbacks taken in the draft. We'll have to see that, to your point. But I think he'll finish the season as the starter. I think Oregon's going to have an impressive year. I think there's a world where they can get to double-digit wins and see if they can find themselves back in Vegas.
They got to go through Salt Lake City to do that, though, right?
Well, they get them at home in week 11. Like, so much can happen between now and then.
Good point.
I don't know, but I like how their schedule sets up. I go back to that, right? Like, they don't play SC, who Adam, he's raved about, and they play Utah late. Like, I think, again, there's time for them to develop, but it's going to be hard charging early, right? Eastern Washington isn't a slouch. I'm calling that game week 2. Then they have BYU coming home. And I think what's interesting, we don't talk about it enough. I don't know if you guys talked about it in the other previews, but quarter system schools versus semester schools. Quarter system schools don't have students on campus, right? So what's the environment like in Autzen? Like, I think they'll come back for the BYU game, but will they be there for Eastern? And if they do have an impressive win, let's say they have that upset, like, hanging, like, there's some realities to cliches, right? And they're just going to be really fun to track. All right, another thing to track is the portal, right? We've talked about this a ton. Let's talk about quarterbacks and kind of chunk it. Before I want to get to Tanner McKee towards the end of the conversation here, but we got about 15, 20 minutes left here. Cameron Ward, in my eyes, second best quarterback in the portal behind Caleb Williams, because he's proven. He's proven, right? Jackson Dart hadn't been proven. I think his ceiling's really high. Cameron Ward, and you study him, really talented. We have Jane DeLora, intra-conference transfer, right? He was the reigning freshman offensive player of the year at Washington State. He goes down to Arizona with a bunch of talented players there. We look at Emory Jones. He's a transfer in the portal. Jack Plummer will be the starter at Cal. I think Cal is tremendously underrated. Was up there last week. Really like what Justin Wilcox's doing.